Ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of the Lewis Sports Network. Hope everybody is having a wonderful Tuesday afternoon, late Tuesday afternoon. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Make sure those post notifications are turned on. Make sure you're sharing on your social media platforms. Truly appreciate that. Hope everybody is having a wonderful day. Peace and blessings to everybody. Always want to give a shout out and thank you guys for always liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel, man. I definitely appreciate you. So all new subscribers, on to the video. You know, after watching the video on this particular player, it made me actually appreciate what he brought to the game of basketball and actually help modernize the game that we have today. You're asking yourself, Lewis, what player could you possibly be talking about? Could this be a past player? And you're absolutely right. It is a past player. As a matter of fact, his prime was in the 90s. And the guy that I'm talking about is a sharpshooter. And that sharpshooter's name is the legendary Reggie Miller. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, legendary Reggie Miller. To the casual fan, they're going to tell you Reggie Miller is what you call 90s players and anything pre-90s plumbers. They are nothing but plumbers. Reggie's overrated. He only made 5 All-Star appearances. His highest scoring season was what, 25, just under 25 a game. You know, he only made 3 All-NBA teams. Like, what's so special about Reggie Miller? He's overrated. How did he make the Hall of Fame? You know, it took him 18 years to score 25,000 points. Now, at face value, that's what you would say. For a hardcore basketball fan, you guys know that Reggie Miller was the real deal. And how was he the real deal? Well, let me tell you. What were things that Reggie had trouble doing that other great players were able to do that he wasn't really able to master as a perimeter player? Well, Reggie was not fast. Reggie didn't have the one-on-one offense that a lot of the great ISO scorers have. Reggie was not a guy that was putting up numbers in bunches when you're talking about 26, anywhere from 26 to 30 plus points a game. So Reggie was not that kind of player. And also Reggie didn't take a lot of shot attempts in his career compared to some of the other players who were putting up 18, 19, 20 plus shots a game. But what Reggie Miller did do when he had the ball in his hands was he had actually many different ways to score, even though it didn't show on the stat sheet always. For one, Reggie was actually one of the more originator players when it came to the step back. And the crazy part is we conceive of Reggie as a three-point shooter, especially what he did in the playoffs. But what a lot of people don't know is that Reggie took a lot of long twos. And a lot of the reason that he took a lot of long twos was because of the era he played in, especially in the 90s. And for Reggie, he took the most attempts I think Reggie took from the three-point line in one season was 6. And there was a stretch, I believe, I want to say maybe about a 6 or 7 year stretch in his career where the most threes he attempted a game were at least over 5. And Reggie had 9 seasons, half of his career, in which he shot 40% or higher from the three-point line. And that was on 5 to 6 attempts a game. And the incredible part about Reggie was that he had this uncanny ability to get to the free throw line, especially in the playoffs. Because I think Reggie had 2 seasons where he averaged, I think, 7 free throw attempts a game, just over 7 free throw attempts. And this is from a guy who's mostly on the perimeter because Reggie didn't have the ability to just drive downhill. Reggie was very deceptive in how he drove to the basket. If he went one-on-one with somebody, he would either use a fake drive, either side, whether he would fake right and drive left or fake left and drive right. He would also fake and usually curl to try to draw a foul, or if he had the opening to score on a layup. Reggie Miller had the ability to go baseline, and when he went baseline, one of the things he liked to do is if he got deep into the paint, he would always flail his arms up in the air, and a lot of times guys did get him on contact and foul him. Whereas sometimes he would obviously do the infamous, leg kick to draw the leg out into the shooting space of the shooter when the defender didn't give him the amount of space to land, and he would draw his fouls that way. But actually, Reggie was actually doing that later in his career, because I actually was watching a lot of 90s games of Reggie, like from 93 to about 98, and I realized that Reggie really wasn't using that leg kick a lot. And if you watch Reggie, he would shoot a lot of twos. He shot a lot of long twos, especially when he was coming off screens. Reggie's off-ball game is really legendary because it actually set the modernized game that you see today And I remember listening to Steph Curry in an interview, and somebody asked him, who did you pattern your game after? And he said that he patterned his game after Reggie. I think the other guy he said was Steve Nash. But if you watch Curry play, he's actually doing the same things that Reggie's doing on offense. It's just the difference is Curry does a little bit more advanced stuff. Like, for example, if Reggie had the ability to handle the ball better, if Reggie was a willing passer. If Reggie had the passing ability that a Curry had, could you just imagine? And this is a Reggie Miller who was 6'6" and weighed about, what, 185? Could you imagine if Reggie was 210, 215? Reggie had a very quick first step. Reggie, like I said, was not fast, but he had a very quick step anytime he went one-on-one. If he was able to get you at an angle, because Reggie's off-ball movement came at so many different angles to try to score baskets. And the thing is, Reggie's off-ball movement is legendary in the fact that he did not have the spacing that other players had when they played with multiple shooters. Reggie had to create the spacing himself. That's how much attention Reggie drew, and that's how impactful he is, to that he was able to set other teammates up with the attention that he got. I remember when they brought in Rick Smiths was able to give him a little bit of low post scoring, and then they would be able to move the ball and pass out a double team. And look, Reggie was not a flashy passer, and that's not Reggie's game. That's not what he primarily does. Reggie was more of a simple passer. He was a willing passer. There were times like in the half court where he would miss guys that were wide open in half court sets. One thing he did improve on, like much later in his career, is usually passing out of the pick and roll. I thought he did a much better job when guys were like, I think of Rick Smith when he would set, if it was a down screen or he would set slip screens, he was able to score, like with bunches, right? And so in continuation, ladies and gentlemen, Reggie played to his strengths because he knew his limitations. And I think that that's one of the more special things about Reggie Miller. And then when you look at the fact that they had Detlef Schrempf and they had Chuck Person when the Pacers were coached by Bob Hill and they were known for offense, they were not a good defensive team. You change the identity. You obviously you let Chuck Person go and you trade Detlef Schrempf and you bring in Derek McKee. You're able to bring in the Davis brothers eventually, and they become more tougher defensively and they're able to rebound the basketball. And the fact that Reggie was able to do this type of style for 18 years, and think about the incredible success Reggie had. The Indiana Pacers, they just didn't win, and they ran into better teams in the 90s. Some would say that that the Pacers were probably better than some of those teams. Unfortunately that they didn't win, because if you look at it, let's face it, for Reggie to do what he did with the type of game that he had, I think is very remarkable. They went to 5 Eastern Conference Finals, 94, 95, 98, 99, 2000. Look at the teams that Reggie went up against. Look at the era that they played in when it was about the bigs. And here you have 6'6", 185-pound skinny Reggie Miller doing a totally different type of offense, because it's not just about the coaching, obviously, and obviously about your personnel, but it was like Reggie was able to make it work with the personnel he had. The only issue with the Pacers, and it's crazy because the Pacers really did not have three-point shooting like that. Like, I know when Byron Scott came to the team, he was a good three-point shooter. But other than Byron Scott and, at times Mark Jackson, the Pacers were not really that known for three-point shooting. And the thing is, Reggie Miller was the one that really, and I mean after they got rid of Chuck Person and, and obviously Detlef. And Chuck Person obviously took threes. Not Detlef Schrempf didn't take him at the level that he did, but still. But the fact that Reggie was able to go deep into the playoffs with the roster that he had, they didn't have the shooting, the three-point shooting, the spacing that some of the great players that have won championships had, again, is a testament to how great Reggie's style of play is. And I said that Curry has had the shooting that Reggie never really had. Curry has the ball handling that Reggie Miller never really had, because Reggie was prone to turn the ball over because of his inability to break his man down one-on-one. See, the way he had to do was really more with fakes, and if he had an advantage, he'd be able to do a quick first step. But that's why I said that Reggie Miller was he was arguably the most feared man other than Michael Jordan in the postseason, in the playoffs in the 90s. You didn't want that game to be close, or even if you were up by like 10, you didn't feel like it was safe because of his ability to shoot you back into the game. And especially like if Reggie got hot, he could go for those 15, 20-point quarters every now and then. And that's what you have to be careful. I mean, you look at, I think about the 8 points in 9 seconds he did against my Knicks in game 1 of the semis in 95. You're down 8 points. And you were able to find a way to tie the game off of this sheer stupidity by the Knicks. Let's just be really honest, because that was the Knicks' Achilles heel. So for Reggie Miller to be an a 5-time All-Star and to be able to play at a high level for 18 years with that style of play, going as deep into the playoffs as he did, and I'm just talking about from 94 to 2000, because the Pacers, they did go to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2004, which was Reggie's most talented team. You could even make the case about the 2005 team being Reggie's the most talented team. Look at the guys that Reggie went up against too when you consider his All-NBAs and also his All-Star appearances. You're talking about guys like Michael. You obviously have Michael there. Think of the guards that played, and Drexler, and it's a whole bunch. I mean, Reggie was in a very tough era, man, and for him to do what he did is a testament to how great of a player he really was. So like I said, to the casuals, he's going to be overrated to them and is more underrated as time goes by. But to be honest with you, let me just say this right now. Reggie Miller's game has aged very well. And the reason I say that is because look at the modern game now. And look at Steph Curry. He is a more advanced version of Reggie Miller when you piece it all together. Curry doesn't have Reggie's size, but Curry is able to shoot with more volume. Reggie didn't shoot with as much volume from the three-point line like Curry did, but part of the reason was because of the era he played in. That's the reason. If you watch Reggie closely, he took more long twos than he did three-point shots. And he was able to set him and his teammates up without being a great passer. But Reggie was getting hockey assists only through his off-ball movement. And that's how guys got easy baskets. And at least with the addition of Rick Smith giving him at least somewhat of a low post presence where he would be able to take a turnaround jumper. Oh, another thing that Reggie had was he had a really nice leaner. It looked awkward, but it became his shot. And if you look at his leaner, it was really like, you would call it the bank shot of his day or the floater of his day, his leaning jump shot, whether he would lean and shoot off the glass or he would lean in if he would evade a defender to just get open. And everything that Reggie did, even with his step back jumper, it was all about spacing. His off-ball movement and his one-on-one offense had a lot to do with spacing, which is what modern day offenses, and we've seen quite a lot of offenses back at, some of them back in the day with certain teams, but it's like the NBA as a whole is the modern game. And people are looking at it as, man, Curry really changed the game and stuff like that. To a degree, he has. But the reason I want to go back to the 90s, and this is why I say, ladies and gentlemen, you need to learn your history of the game of basketball. Reggie Miller, your style has aged very well. It's aged very well. And this is a guy whose game elevated in the postseason. It has. I mean, every great player has had bad series, and Reggie has had his share of them, but his game elevated in the playoffs. The fact that Reggie came so close so many times. And the thing is, you can make a case that some of those Pacer teams he were on were better than quite a few teams in the 90s that either went deep into the playoffs and the conference finals or even went to the NBA finals. But ladies and gentlemen, this is your boy with another one. I just wanted to shed light on Reggie Miller and just how impactful and special he really was, despite the stats and the accolades not showing it. Reggie's game doesn't really show on the stat sheet, but what it did was it showed you how impactful of a player he was when it came to the style of play in today's modern NBA, which is translated to Steph Curry. And shout out to Steph Curry for mentioning Reggie Miller and keeping his name alive when it came to who he patterned his game after, because now that I've gotten a much deeper understanding of that, Reggie actually really was a great player, even though the numbers don't show it. But ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you guys think on the video. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Bless up, live, laugh, love. Thank you guys for watching.